Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Metropolitan Board of Zoning Appeals is now in session for its regularly scheduled meeting of February the 16th, 2012. I'm Joey Hargis, and I'll be presenting the cases for review in today's public hearing. I would ask at this time, if you would please put your cell phones on silent or vibrate so as not to interrupt today's proceedings. The procedure would be to introduce the case record on the wall here and the monitors there in the back by means of a PowerPoint presentation. We'll present any maps, photographs, or sketches of the cases on today's agenda. We'll also present any letters that we have from other Metro agencies regarding today's cases. At the conclusion of our case record, the applicant will come first to the table before me. As you'll notice on my microphone, there's a red lighted ring. There's a button on the podium right in front of you that says speak. If you'll hit that button and identify yourself and make your presentation. And then I would appreciate it if you don't mind when you're done talking, that button and turn the mic off. When we have several mics on, we do occasionally get some feedback in the room. After we've presented our testimony, as I said, the applicant will go first and then followed by folks in opposition to a case. In a case without opposition, the applicants have 10 minutes to present their testimony. To the right of the members, you see the clock on the wall on the stand there. That would be your time. It runs during testimony and is stopped for any questions that the board has to restart upon new testimony. In a case with opposition, each side of a case has 15 minutes to present their testimony. So the applicants have 15 minutes to present their testimony. If they would like a rebuttal, they should save some of their 15 minutes for rebuttal. The opposition will go next. Their 15 minutes will be used at that time. And then the applicant will come back for their rebuttal period. All section numbers that are referred to today come directly from the Metropolitan Code of Law, Title 17, which is the Metropolitan Zoning Ordinance. It applies to the entire jurisdiction of the metropolitan government and became effective January 1st, 1998. I'll introduce and make a part of the record, the entire zoning code, a copy of which is kept at my desk here behind me, and I'll dispense reading individual sections unless the applicant or opposition requests that I read them. The code requires that these proceedings be taped. Therefore, anyone wishing to address this board, as I talked about, please come forward, identify yourself, and make your presentation. It should be noted that it's found that anyone's presented false or misleading testimony to the board that would have affected this board's decision, any approval may be revoked at a later date by means of a show cause hearing. The board will go through all cases set for public hearing today, and then after each case comes up, the board will discuss and then vote on that case. The board's vested with the power to act before us is action outlined in Section 1740-180 of the Metropolitan Code of Law. The code requires that 4 members of the 7-member board be present to constitute a quorum. The code also requires that you have 4 affirmative votes to grant your application. Therefore, I have all 7 members present today. You need 4 of these individuals' votes for your case to be granted. In the event, however unlikely today, should we only have 4 members participate in a case, you must have all 4 of those members' votes. If you don't, the case will be reset and re-advertised for a new public hearing. The applicant or any aggrieved property owner may appeal this board's decision to Chancery or Circuit Court within 60 days of today's public hearing. Also, an applicant or aggrieved party may request a rehearing before this board within that same 60-day period, but after 60 days, the board's decision is final and no further action may be taken. If you're an applicant and your case is granted, you do have to come get the permit for which you've applied. This board is just one step in that permitting process, and you have 2 years from today's date to obtain your permit for this approval, if granted today, is to remain valid. Mr. Chairman, I submit that all cases were filed in order. All appellants were notified by certified mail as required by the zoning code. All affected property owners within 300 feet were sent a letter by means of first-class mail, and a legal ad was published in the Tennessean as required by the code. Before I begin, are there any elected officials present today who wish to address the board? Hi, Council A, if you want to come forward, do you wish to address the board at this time? Yeah, absolutely. Please come forward.
Well, I'd like to say good afternoon to the board. I appreciate your expertise as well as your commitment to public service. I understand that being a council member myself. My name is Council Member Erica Gilmore, and I wanted to speak to case 2012-016, which is the first one on there. I would ask that you grant support for this non-conforming structure, which is in the Napier area. They plan to have a deli, turn this into a deli/restaurant, and do community outreach for that. If you're familiar with the area, this particular area is like a food desert, so I think this particular use would be a good use for it, even though it's non-conforming. And there's not many businesses over there for that. So I ask for your vote or support for that. And the next one I would like to speak to is case 2012-019 as it relates to the sign, to grant usage of this sign, even though it doesn't fit in the conforming use as well. I think there's a question about whether there's, I think the travel lanes, and it's questionable. Some people say it can be done with the amount of lanes that it is, and it's not used the total time. So I would ask for that as well. Anytime a business owner tries to improve something in the area, and if it's not, it doesn't hurt the area or the community, I would ask that you support those two things. I thank you so much for your time. Once again, I thank you for your service and your commitment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Lady.
Here who'd wish to address the board? Okay, seeing no. Turn my mic off there. Mr. Chairman, there are no preliminary announcements today. The board does have a consent agenda, and prior to the meeting, a board member reviews the record on each case, and if in their opinion the applicant meets the criteria for which they've requested, and they feel that testimony would not alter the material facts, they recommend that case to the remainder of the board for approval. Mr. Richard King was nice enough to review for consent agenda today, and as I call these cases, I'll enter into the record these cases that have been recommended for consent, and if there's anyone here in opposition to a case, please raise your hand, and I will remove the case from the consent agenda and hear it in its regular order. The first case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2012-16 on page 1. Beckery Seaman at 71 Lewis Street is requesting an addition to a non-conforming structure in the CS district. Is there any parties present who object to case 16? Okay, do have one person present. We'll hear that in its regular order in today's agenda. The next case recommended for consent, case 2012-18, Kathy Yarborough at 724 Crescent Road. Is anyone here in opposition to case 18 on Crescent Road? Seeing none, the exceptional and irregular shape of this lot necessitates the need for a street setback variance. This lot is a pie-shaped lot, and its narrowness toward the back is pushing this home forward, and that necessitates the need for a variance in that case. The next case recommended for the consent agenda is case 2012-21, Elite Homes LLC at 700 Wedgwood Park, requesting a special exception to construct a new 30-unit condominium building. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 21? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, this is a special exception dealing with setback. The issue here is the corner lot in which they're building this structure. The right-of-way, when TDOT took the interchange at Wedgwood and I-65, actually, instead of leaving the radius as it was, they cut the radius off at the intersection of the two streets that were remaining at Wedgwood Park. And we have to measure from the existing right-of-way, and there's really just a small corner of this building that's encroaching into the setback. You do have comments from the planning department, I believe, that were supportive of the case. And finally, the last case recommended for consent, case 2012-22, Hilltop Auto. The property at 2408 Dickerson Pike. Is there anyone here in opposition to case 22 on Dickerson Pike? This is a, Mr. Chairman, I see none. This is a change of non-conforming use. The non-conforming use that exists on this property, there are actually multiple parcels that span this scrap operation on Dickerson Pike. This will take a portion of that property, one of the parcels involved, and convert it from a scrap operation to a used car facility. The scrap operation would cease on that portion of the entire properties in which they own. Those cars would have to be removed, and then this use would be allowed here. And the standard in which you all are recommending approval is that the used car sale use is more compatible with the surrounding CS zoning than the scrap operation. And with those, that is the consent agenda today, cases 18, 21, and 22.
Thank you very much to Mr. King. We have a motion to move the consent agenda. Do we have a second? Second. We have a first and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
If you are here for cases 18, 21, and 22, your cases have been granted. You are free to go. Or you're welcome to stay and watch the remaining cases that will come before us. This time I'll call the first case. The first case the board will hear will be case 2012-16. Is the applicant present in this case? All right, sir, if you'll come forward, please, and any other persons in support, please come forward and have a seat at the table. If you'll give me just one moment, I'll get the photographs loaded for the members to look at. And again, there's opposition present each side of this case. Sir, you'll have 15 minutes to present your testimony. You may want to save some of that for rebuttal after the opposition speaks. The opposition will also have 15 minutes in total to present their testimony. But this is a request for an addition to a non-conforming structure in the CS and UZO districts to construct a 986 square foot addition to the north end of the existing non-residential building. It's referred to the board under section 1740-660C. The applicant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740-180D. The subject property is located, you see here, on the east margin of Lewis Street, just north of Robertson Street, and just south of alley number 138. It is in the CS zone district. This is an aerial photo from approximately 18 months ago that show the existing structure on the site. The proposal is to construct an addition on the north end of this structure, following along the existing line which exists today. The site plan submitted by the applicant shows the existing structure here and the proposed addition located in this location. You may look at this and wonder, a lot of times we talk about rear setback. This line along the alley is not considered the rear property line in this case. The street is here and the rear property line is off the eastern edge here. And again, the existing structure sits at 15'5" off the rear. And the nonconformity exists there and along the street. This is looking at the property from Lewis Street, be facing toward the east. This is the adjoining property in the bottom right. This is the across the alleyway to the north, and then the multifamily development on the west side of Lewis Street here, to give you some orientation of the surrounding property. And then the proposed addition would be located where you see here the first course blocks there laid. That's the footprint of the proposed addition. Okay, that's case records. We have it, sir. If you would please identify yourselves. Again, you have 15 minutes to present your testimony to the board. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, my name is Bakri Saman, and I'm the owner of the building. I'm trying to build additional space which will be very usable for my plan. What I'm trying to do is store and daily, and once in a while, hopefully, I'm trying to help out the community with health screening and that kind of stuff. And thank you.
My name is Brent Riley. I actually be doing the construction and constructing the building. Sir, is it possible to bring a picture of the building back up? Mm-hmm. If you look, the north side of the building, which would be to my right, on the corner facing Lewis Street, that building was struck by a car. The car actually drove it to the building. I was removing some of the debris out of the building. What is going to happen is where you see the wooden paneling, that's going to come off. To my left, which is on the alley side of the, right there. To the left, which is on the alley side of the property, That's what the building will be extended out to. To my calculations, we'll be ended up with, I think it's 630 square feet as opposed to 900 square feet in the addition.
Okay.
The other thing is, I have some newsletters here. I made enough copies for each and every one of you. It actually reads, "My name is Beckery Simon. I recently had the opportunity to purchase a small white restaurant located at 71 Lewis Street. This building recently has had a bad reputation for loitering and other illegal activities. So I joined in with the effort of neighborhood leaders in the push to clean up, restore this great area. Now, if you'll stop right there, please. I enlisted the opinions of St. Luke Primitive Baptist Church, which is one of the larger, well-known churches in the area. I asked the pastor, Pastor Stevens, what did he think about it? He said he needed to run it by his people and see what they thought. With almost no hesitation, he got right back with me and said that they approved of it wholeheartedly, and he himself personally would be on board and would be in favor of this project because of the eyesore and the reputation that this building previously had. He said that if I needed his presence, that he would be able to come in. But after talking with him, I spoke with Councilwoman Gilmore. I explained to her also the situation with the building, which she was familiar with that area. There's not many children-friendly business establishments in that area. And I was explaining to her, I think this would be a great plus for that area, especially with the periodic health screenings, the free HIV screenings, the high blood pressure checks. I mean, there's people around there in this poverty-stricken area that's just simply not able to afford these type of services. And like I said, periodically, this establishment would be offering them free of charge. To finish, I am in the process of bringing the building up to code standards while remodeling this location as well. Due to some additional services we'll be offering, which I just announced to you, to the community as periodic free health screenings, blood pressure checks, diabetes screening, HIV and AIDS testing, and other beneficial services. We find it necessary to expand the building at this location, being that this will be a family and children, it should be children, it says child, being that this will be a family and children-friendly location. We will not be selling alcoholic beverages of any type, including beer. Also, we have enlisted the support of Councilwoman Gilmore. The rest of it is pretty much what I just announced to you all. And me, myself, personally, through working over there, some of the times I've been working over there, and through doing some of the things that I've been doing throughout this neighborhood, and I've worked on quite a few projects over there, this area definitely needs something positive over there. Definitely children-friendly and children-educational, because there's so much negative persuasion in that area. That's about all I have to say. I'm sure we'll probably need to save some of the time for a rebuttal. I'm sorry, I would also like to say I appreciate the board even considering hearing me and Mr. Simon's proposal for this neighborhood. Thank you.
Questions? I guess I have one question. I think our legal standard for expanding a non-conforming use is it consistent with the area, and would it have any negative impact on the surrounding area? So do you think it's consistent? And
Yes, sir, I think it's consistent. As far as back behind the building where the wall is, codes call for a brick wall to be behind the building, which there already is a brick wall behind the building. As far as the north side of the property, we dropped it back, if I'm not mistaken, we dropped it back about 8 to 10 feet from the alley.
Okay.
And one of the reasons for doing that is because while we were removing some of the debris and some of the old material and stuff off the building, we actually had the alley blocked, and the family to the left of the alley weren't able to get in their driveway, and the lady became very upset. So I told Mrs. Simon we need to drop back a little bit away from the alley, which is what we did, allowing her to be able to get in and out of her property freely. So as far as conformance goes, with the exception of the restriction that was previously set in place, yeah, I think it would be a very positive and very good asset to the community.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
We'll save the rest of your time for rebuttal.
Yes, sir.
Opposition, would you like to come forward?
I live in,
I'm sorry, can you give us your name, please?
my name is Misty Roby, and I live at 81 Lewis, which is the house right next door to this property. The White House right there is where I live. What I come to say is it's good for him to try to make the neighborhood more kid-friendly. That's fine. But it takes the parents, not only the kids. The last time that place was a business, there were people standing out in front of my house selling drugs, loud music, cars blocking the alley where I nor my husband can get in or out of it. We cannot park on the street because people will literally hit your car there. They stand up there and play loud music. They cuss. So how would all that be efficient to the children? I've lived over there at least probably 8 years, and I don't see how that type of business would even help the neighborhood. Because, go ahead. And it just, I mean, there's trash. There was trash out there last time. It smelled so bad. When you walked outside, all you wanted to do was throw up. That's how bad it stank over there. And I just don't think with what they're saying, any of that will even help over there. I've had my windows busted out of my car, out of 2 of my vehicles. I'm not saying it's because of that property, it's because of the people that travel up and down that alley that associate with the things that go on in that building.
I have a question. Do you know Mr. Saman, and have you had any, did he have any, to your knowledge, relationship with the business that was there before?
Not that I know of.
All right, so your experience was with the past owners. I mean, I understand your concern, and don't get me wrong, I totally understand what you're saying, but it's not the same group of people, to your knowledge, that are trying to come in and do something different?
Not that I know of. They're not the same.
What was the last business?
He had a restaurant over there. He sold multiple kinds of food. I don't think he sold any alcohol beverages, but he still opened that door for all of that stuff to go on. They would get out there and play their music loud. They would park in the alley where I could not park. And then when supposedly the day that he's talking about that I got upset, they had the entire alley blocked off where I really couldn't even hardly get into the place where I parked behind my house. And then they just played me off like it was no concern. And then a little while later, he tried to come and apologize that they had blocked the alley.
Questions?
What would you like to see happen on that corner?
I really would like to see something for the kids. that would be beneficial for them. But it's going to take a whole lot of more than just him opening a restaurant over there. The kids get out there, they fight, they cuss, they shoot each other, they sell drugs. And where are the parents? If you're going to do something for the kids, you've got to get the parents involved also. I don't even let my kids outside half the time because I already know what goes on over there. When I first moved over there, I had pulled up in the yard and the police asked me, he said, "You need to get in the house. We're looking for someone."
I'd like to say this, and with all due respect for the situation that you have with your family, we respect your passion for what's going on in your neighborhood. It's important that we have somebody that's trying to do something positive with a lot of support from the community, and that's the first advancement towards solving some of these issues. We can't hold this gentleman responsible for past acts, okay? We have to look at this from a business perspective about how this property is best used in this situation from adding this addition in the neighborhood. And it seems that your councilwoman and this pastor have a lot of respect and support. Have you talked to them at all?
How are they going to have support? I don't even know where St. Luke's is. It's somewhere over there. I don't know where it is.
I think,
and I've never seen that council lady out in our neighborhood knocking on anybody's doors, trying to ask any questions or anything.
Well, I think this is a great opportunity now that you know who your councilwoman is and this gentleman and what their vision and mission is for what they're trying to accomplish. It'd be a great way for you to have a relationship that could be conducive to building a better neighborhood. But I want you to respect that we hear what you're saying, but it's hard for us to hold them accountable for bad acts from somebody else in the past. I think all we can look forward to is seeing that something positive can occur there.
Well, I do not want them to park in the alley, nor in front of my house, or their vehicles will be towed off. That I live there. They have no business. If they're going over there, they need to stay on this side. They do not need to park in the alley because that is not a parking spot. Because I've already called the police before on the previous people that was there, and they told me that is not a parking lot. They cannot park in that alley or in front of my house.
Joey, I'm sorry. I'm throwing you away from this. One of my questions was going to be about the parking situation over there. Are there marked areas for no parking zones, or is traffic and parking addressed any of this?
I'm not aware of any on the street. There's none being provided on site, but under the zone code, there's none required either.
That was my next question.
As far as on the property.
Okay.
The zoning code, based on the size of that structure, is not required.
And those are all public right away?
On street, unless there's markings by Public Works that say no parking on that. Now, certainly you guys would have control of whether folks park on their property along the alleyway. You can certainly condition things upon the actual site itself. But as far as not allowing folks to park on the street, traffic parking's got full control over that.
Okay. And that has not been an issue at this point?
When I went out to the site, I don't recall seeing no parking signs here.
Okay. So we can put some conditions on this particular issue, whether it was surrounding that.
As it regards to on the premises.
On that premises only. Okay.
Yeah. Anything on the street you couldn't.
I was going to say public right away. Okay, thank you.
Well, there are no parking signs across the street where J.C. Napier is, because J.C. Napier is right across the street from us. They have put up the black fence, the big black fence, and they have no parking signs up through there saying that they're not allowed to park, which people still do. They get ticketed and whatever, but that doesn't concern me. My thing isn't concerned about on that side of the street. It's just on the side of the street where I live and in front of my house. Because, I mean, even though he's not going to sell alcohol beverage, he's still going to attract all people from around there. And if he's going to put something over there, it needs to be, if he wants to do it for the kids, it needs to be more kid-friendly. But he's also got to get the parents involved. My children are teenagers. My son's fixing to go to college. My daughter will be a senior in high school. So after that, it'd just be me and my husband over there. I just don't want them to park in front of the house or in the alley.
Okay, thank you. Rebuttal?
Excuse me, to address the board once again, with all due respect, I really do, and when I say it, I sincerely mean it. I really do sympathize with, I can't remember her name, I apologize, but I really do sympathize with her cause. The businesses that were there prior to the development of this new business, I won't say it's irrelevant, but I will say that part of the reason that we're structuring this business the way that we're structuring it is to reach and touch other people. And if you remember the letter that I just gave you all, it says in the letter that this business was way off base. From alcohol to drugs to one of the guys even said they were a street pharmacist. That didn't hit me very well either. So I can truly sympathize with what she's saying. But I would appreciate it if she didn't have a tunnel vision and look at any and everybody that moves in that location and think that they're going to conduct the business the way people did in the past. Myself, I'm 49 years old. I'll be 50 in May. And as far as the loud bang-to-bang music and all of that, that's out. I have a daughter, 16. She's in high school. I have a grandchild that's not quite one yet. I'm sure they'll be coming to the location. My whole thing, I say that to say, not once did Mr. Simon or myself try to hide or condone the activities that was going on at 71 Lewis Street. Once he and myself talked and he decided to acquire the property, I made it a point for him to tell me what his whole entire scope of this business would be. Once I found out what his head was and where he was going, then that's why I reached out to the community and see how the community as a whole felt and not one or two people in the community. As far as blocking her house from the alley, I apologize to her about that. I spoke with her husband. I even went as far as to knock on her door, and I said, ma'am, I know it probably cost you gas because you had to sit in your car and wait to get in your driveway and everything, and I gave her $20 for gas. I mean, I'm sure that was an enormous amount for 5 or 10 minutes, but not only the gas, but because of her, what is the word I'm looking for? Inaccessibility to her property. And as each of you know, sometimes we got to go through a little uncomfortable situation to get to a better situation. For instance, the new center that we're building downtown. 2 or 3 times we've had to go completely out of the way, loop around the town to get to where we need to go. But the big picture and the final outcome, the place will be beautiful, very beautiful, I'm sure, and it will be very convenient for everyone involved. And last but not least, what I guess I would have to say is, for undesirables to come around and to patronize your place, there would have to be an element to attract them there. Nowhere in the scope or in the literature that I gave you will you see that. I have people in that neighborhood that know that I build businesses. This is the second market that I built within a year in that neighborhood, and they know my intentions. I mean, I won't say they know me personally, but before I do something like that, I research and I go out and I see how the people feel. And as I told Mr. Simon, if I don't feel like the people as a whole agree with this construction, I can't do it. But I thought unanimously we had the approval of the neighborhood, but For the one person that we didn't, I apologize. I apologize.
Thank you very much. Any questions?
I would like to ask you one more time, explain to us again what is you're going to do there?
Okay, it'll be a market. It'll have fruits, fresh vegetables. It'll have sodas. It'll have everything that everyday people like. And I'm not saying everyday people don't like alcohol. We choose not to use alcohol because we want to attract good kids and nice kids. And even the kids that aren't so nice. Once you get around good people, it'll rub off. My mom told me that years ago. So, I mean, it'll be a community-oriented place. As far as the fightings and the shootings and stuff that she was talking about, I'm sure each one of you are no stranger to this area. It's right across the interstate, directly across the interstate from this building. For the last 40 to 50 years, it's been plagued with problems. They beefed up security. They beefed up the police department in that area. I mean, we're doing what we can do. We can't do it all. I'm not going to sit here and tell you a lie and say that we can, but we're trying to do our part.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing discussion.
Well, I'm just going to say two things. One, I applaud these folks for trying to bring something positive, and their attitude is really refreshing to see this happening in the neighborhood. Of course, we'd like to see some economic development. I think this is the only way you can lift up this area, is to see some positive things happening. I think the burden of the story belongs to you, and what you do with this building and what you do with trying to work with your neighbors is very important. But I think the premise and your genuine authenticity about what you're trying to accomplish is to be applauded.
Thank you.
I would add that I think the expansion of the non-conforming building would not have a negative impact on the surrounding area. If anything, it would have a positive impact because it would give more square footage for a business that's positive towards the community. So having said that, I would make a motion that we approve because the expansion of the non-conforming structure would be consistent with the neighborhood and would actually improve the neighborhood as opposed to being a detriment.
I'll second.
Got a motion, got a second, all in favor?
Before we vote, should we clarify the square footage on this 986 to 600 so that does
Yeah,
not
it says one thing, you're right. It says one
indicate
thing on the
that
drawing
we're
and one
approving
thing.
more than would actually fit on the site or whatever?
The drawing shows 600 and
Right.
this statement shows 900.
Right.
Did you say the public hearing's closed, but I think he said 634?
Well, the plan showed it
shows
at 600.
Okay,
Right.
okay.
So I just wanted
What's the number?
approved for 600 square feet versus 986
There's just a
as the appeal is typed up. So.
Okay, so duly noted, and we'll limit it to the square footage in the drawing.
Do you feel like we need to say anything about parking?
I don't think we have the power to do that. I think that's traffic and parking, and I would certainly encourage anybody to contact their council person if they think they need some no parking zone in front of their house. So I would encourage them to contact Ms. Gilmore. But so we've got a motion, we've got a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How soon would, after we get the permit, will we be able to begin?
I can talk to you about that.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we'll call the next case 2012-17. Joe Emily Smith, the appellant and owner of the property at 4005 Murphy Road. The applicants are present, requesting a variance in the street setback in RS5 UZO district to construct a 13 by 13 two-story addition to the front of the residence, referred to the board under section 1712-030A. The appellant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740 180B. The applicants present. Are there any parties opposed to case 17? Mr. Chairman, seeing none, you'll have 10 minutes to present your testimony. Let me show them photographs first, and I'll turn it over to you all. The subject property is located on the south margin of Murphy Road, just west of 40th Avenue North. The red line, which you note there, is Murphy Road is deemed as a collector, as an AB2 arterial street on the major street plan. That requires a setback being a minimum of 40 feet or the average of the homes to either side, whichever is greater. In this case, the average is actually the greater of the two. North on this drawing is at the bottom of the page. The homes on either side are 43 and 51 feet in distance, and that requires their setback to be 47 feet based upon that average. They are requesting to have 35 feet, and that would be a variance of 12 feet in total. This is looking at the subject property and the adjoining properties on the left and right-hand sides. The home to the right is one of the two numbers used in the average of the two structures. This is the other home that is the average here. The proposal, and I'm best guesstimate of location of this addition, but would come out approximately 12 feet from what you see here, and the new front porch will put on. This is a two-story addition. The upper level dormer will be extended, I think, to create some living space, but I'll turn that over to the applicants and let them describe their project. The picture on the bottom right is the adjoining property on the left-hand side of the home, standing with the back to the street. And I'll leave that photograph up. Chairman, that's the case records we have it. I'll turn it over to you all for...
Joy, I have a question.
Sir.
Can you confirm the existing setback? Of the drawing has 40-foot setback. Is that correct?
Yeah, the existing home is legally non-conforming now. Prior to the adoption of the major collector street plan in 2011, the maximum setback was required only to be 40 feet out here.
But it is 40 feet now?
Yes, sir. That's our records indicate that.
Okay.
That's as well.
Thank you.
Hello. My name is Jo Smith. This is my husband, Daniel Smith, and we reside at 4005 Murphy Road. We do appreciate your time to listen to us today. I wanted to make just a couple of clarifications. One, we noticed that in today's agenda, it says a 13 by 13 addition. It's actually a 13 by 30 because we want to go across the entire front of our house. And we're actually including the front porch. We plan to tear down the front porch, and we actually only want to come out 5 feet from where that front porch is now. So basically eliminating those bushes. We do want to go upwards. We currently only have a sort of a master suite upstairs, and we'd like to make it a complete second story, and also add an additional bedroom downstairs. This is for family planning. We recently got married, and we do really enjoy the neighborhood. Would like to add a couple of children to it. We did bring some corrected drawings if it's going to help, or I think you have some of this, but I think notably just to let you know that we don't intend to put 13 feet on top of the front porch. The front porch is actually included in that 13 feet that we're asking. One side of our house, we did actually measure it yesterday just to be careful. One is a 41 set. Currently, the porch is 41 feet back and one is 40, so it sits a little cockeyed. The reason we don't want to go out the back is that we do have a beautiful mature tree that we would like to conserve. It gives a beautiful shade in the backyard. Did you have anything to add?
No.
Okay. Thanks again for your time. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Okay, well, I've got one. I noted that you said you could not go at the sides because of the narrowness of the lot, so going out of the sides is impossible.
The one side is too narrow, and the other side is our driveway.
Okay.
So we would sacrifice our driveway, and so that was just why we were choosing the front.
And on the right-hand side of the property, the 3-foot easement or 3-foot setback from the property line just would give no meaning. I think we would get maybe 5 feet before we hit the 3-foot.
So on the sides, it's the narrowness, and in the back, it's the existence of a mature tree, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Joey, can we see the view where we can see the tree? Or there's I guess there was a side on the front.
There you go, see in the back.
Picture of the front. So that's the tree that you're talking about, and I guess it's I understand what you're trying to do. Do you have architectural plans or an architect that you're working with?
Not yet, but we do. Sorry. Not yet. We wanted to make sure that we had approval before we hired an architect, but we do intend to draw up architectural plans. We understand that we are changing the face of the house, so we want to make sure that it matches the overall feel of Sylvan Park. I think the beauty of Sylvan Park is that it is an eclectic neighborhood, but we certainly want it to be attractive from the outside for our neighbors. We did take the list of residents that received letters, and we sent out our own letter. We didn't receive any opposition, and we received several responses from our neighbors that they're in support of. And in particularly the two neighbors directly on either side have absolutely no problem with it. In fact, 4007 will probably be doing his own addition at some point, or hopes to. So.
So you're adding to the first floor and the second floor?
Yes, sir.
Is the roof getting taller? You're essentially making your house closer to the street. And Joy, could you flip back to the? There's a view kind of down the street, right? Okay. So your house is the one with the in the upper corner there.
Yeah, that's ours. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you could flip back to the other one, you can see how where the dormer comes out. There's actually only 13 feet on the inside for the bedroom / master suite, and we're looking to come out at less of an angle than it currently sits at right now. It's so pitched that we're looking to raise it up a little bit, but then do some decorative facade on the front to make it sit in with the rest of the neighborhood as well.
I will note, Sylvan Park's an area that's had some disagreements over land use. So I compliment you for going to your neighbors, and I compliment you on coming back with nothing but favorable. So anyway, congratulations.
Well, and if I could also, as far as I'm aware, there are five new construction projects going on. I mean, Sylvan Park's a hot area to be in, which is why we love it. We don't want to move, but trying to start a family, we're already kind of outgrowing it as it is with a home office in there, so that really leaves one bedroom, but really nothing else. So.
Okay. Any other questions?
What is the note on the plan about historical flag? What's that relative to?
Should I answer that, or is that for?
No. The parcel, this parcel is near the neighborhood conservation district over there, and the Historical Commission typically flags surrounding properties just to keep an eye on permits being issued. They don't have a signatory to the permit. They have actually ignored the project here.
Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing. Discussion?
Yeah, I'm a little concerned about sort of the massing of this and, how it's going to protrude into the setback three-dimensionally. And I would be hesitant to vote in favor of it without seeing at least some preliminary drawings. I don't know if anybody else feels that way or not.
It feels a little cart before the horse. Haven't decided how I really feel about it. I'm still trying to process that, but I'd absolutely respect the mature tree issue. You've heard that from me before, but my neighborhood, personal neighborhood, is a historic district, so I'm used to people doing very creative things out the back and different alternatives to save trees and their yard and that type of thing. But I also, like I said, I understand you wanting to come get permission before you spend money to try to figure out how to solve that issue. You may just find that when you do go to a professional to help you solve that issue, that you have a whole different, you may be back to us for a whole nother reason, for permission from the back or what have you. So that's why it felt like a little bit of a cart before the horse to me, but I understand David's concerns on that.
And I, in fact, would be inclined to offer a motion to defer on that basis.
I guess I'm trying to figure out what your problem is. Is this more of an architectural analysis of what they're trying to accomplish, or?
No. Well, I think that the two-dimensional the plans don't really tell the story of how the house is going to, is it going to be 30-foot incursion where it's now, at the front 10, 12 feet, or is it going to be 15 feet sloping back, exactly. Because to me, that's a big difference. If they were just adding, let's say, a porch, hypothetically, and it was going to be just a 12-foot porch, I can easily wrap my head around that and say, it's not a big deal. But if it's, the full mass of the house coming that much forward, and which would be proud of all the surrounding houses, I think that's a significant change in the setback.
I guess I don't feel like it's our job from the architectural standpoint if we can give them a condition that it needs to match the character of the neighborhood.
I'm not saying it needs to match the character. I'm just saying that it potentially can be very damaging to the streetscape if it's very different from what all the neighbors have, which is why we have setbacks. And it'd be one thing if it were within the setback and a lot bigger than the other houses, but it's another thing if it's in front of all the other houses and big at the same time. I think those are two very, very different things. And I think one is objectionable and one isn't.
Well, I guess since we see such a big porch on this one particular house and the houses next door have much smaller areas, I think I'm just struggling with the rationale of waiting for them to get architectural plans to give them permission to proceed. I think they've done their due diligence in trying to move forward effectively. If we can give them a condition in which they can proceed and get financing and do all the things that they're trying to achieve, I just don't think it's our role to dictate the if it's kept within the character of the neighborhood and they've got an agreement, is that not a condition that we can assist them with?
I don't know that we know that it's within the character of the neighborhood is kind of my point.
I kind of appreciate what you're saying, David. I'm reluctant to get into even infringe on the implication that we would get into some sort of a design review thing, and I think that may be where we're headed with that. And
I'm not suggesting it has anything to do with the design.
I think we owe it to the appellants to vote up or down based on the encroachment on the front setback, based on the merits of the.
Well, even in a two-dimensional world, I still think that we have, insufficient data. Again, that's my opinion, but.
But David, I will. This is just when I was looking at it, I was trying to figure out what is this going to look like, and as a lawyer, I'm basically inhibited from seeing things very well. And so I too have a hard time. But where I ultimately kind of come with this is, I love that area too. I really do. It's one of my favorite areas, but it's an area that will voice its opinion. And to me, there's dead silence, and they got their permission of their neighbors. And so I kind of default to that. I can see where there are the conditions for the variance. So they're in my mind legally entitled in the fact that there's nobody here objecting. But I hear you, because I kind of wonder what it's going to look like.
Well, let me ask you this: do you see sufficient evidence that the tree is a hindrance to going out the back?
I don't think I have enough data for that. But
how much square footage do you think they could build on the back? You don't have the data. That's my point. There's no data here. There's just and in principle, if someone said to me, hey, do you mind if we encroach in the setback? We're going to do a nice addition. It'll fit the neighborhood. Are you okay with that? I'm okay with the idea, but I think that is a check that we have. And, I'm not saying they're going to do something bad.
And I agree, and I appreciate what you're saying. What's to say that if someone came back later and had a solid, tall block brought out to that front, then somebody looked at this board and said, why did you let them do that? That make me wonder too. But
our city has put in historic conservation overlays, and this area does not have one. If it did, this would be an issue of the aesthetics, but right now I think we're looking whether if the encroachment is proper and whether we agree. I mean,
Actually, we're looking to see if there's a hardship that exists, and I also don't see any proof of that. If someone wants to point it out and show me the data that there's an encroachment problem with the shape of the lot, an existing tree, something, show me where it shows us that information.
Joey, could you give us a picture? I think there's a picture that shows the tree in the back.
I've actually got my GIS working today, so let me see if I can give you something more.
And again, it's not an aesthetic issue. I mean, it's just a complete lack of information that I find.
Well, I will say that is the part I was comfortable with. I mean, because on both sides they don't have room, and in the back they're trying to protect a tree, and so that part was comfortable with, and I would think that they'd prefer to go out back versus front.
I'm sorry. Let me give you a mark. This would be the subject residence here.
So just given this evidence, the square footage of the deck times 2 floors does not look like a problem. I mean, if the deck's not a problem for the tree, then the addition wouldn't be a problem for the tree. That's all I'm saying. It's just, you guys can...
May I add a comment?
And that tree is full bloom. It's going to be sitting in the middle of it.
That's fine. Just vote against it. I mean, I'm just saying.
No, I see it's a naked tree, but at the moment, I mean, think about the growth on that tree. If you build up in that tree, does it not interfere with the tree?
It's only going up 5 feet.
But they're gaining 12, right? They're gaining 12 on the deck.
I mean, the deck's already deeper than the addition they're asking for, so.
How far into that deck does a tree come when it's in full bloom?
We actually have to trim that tree because it hits the existing roof line in the back now.
Okay.
So we have to trim I don't know the actual footage, but we do have to keep it trimmed because it scrapes the roof.
Okay, we've staked out both sides articulately. Anybody have a motion?
It stays.
I'm not ready yet.
You need more discussion?
I'll make a motion.
She wants more discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I do. I need more discussion. I'm weighing. I think both sides have reasonable basis. There does appear to be room in the back. On the other hand, I do understand that might require even more trimming of a mature tree, and it may interfere. So I need more discussion. I'm not. Both sides have equally rational basis.
Well, as for me on the tree or the front, I'm not opposed to the idea, and all I'm saying is, with a little more information, it would be a lot easier for me to support this, front or back.
What would you like? Maybe we can help them.
What information would I like?
What information?
What I said earlier, just some basic schematic drawings, just some very basic, this will be the square footage, this is, it'll be this tall. Very simple stuff. You don't need much. And that would, and if a professional were hired, it would be...
Maybe the question goes to them as to what they'd like.
Well, it would go very quickly. Whoever they sit down with would go, here's a bad idea, and I'll tell you why. They'll come back to us, and it's a month later, and that's all that's lost, and I'll go, super.
Well, how about this? There are 3 theoretical motions I can think
to put it is all useful to the next phase that they're going to have to do anyway.
Well, I would anticipate that if you brought plans and an architect that said, we've studied all of the options and we don't believe we can protect this tree and go out the back, you'd have a pretty sympathetic ear here. And I think that's why earlier I was saying it felt like a little bit of the cart before the horse, and I think that David is saying too that we'd like to have more information. And if we gave blanket permission, which is Chris's number one now, then you still are going to go to the architect who may say, you know, add a dormer on the front, add a dormer on the back. You don't have to expand the footprint. You know, why did you go to all this trouble? There may be other options that you're presented that you find more attractive that don't even address the issue that we're talking about. So I think I would lean toward the deferral to say, hey, you know, think about it some more. Know that you can go to your architect saying, I've come before this board and it appeared to have a sympathetic ear to go out the front if it meant protecting the tree, which is the sense I get. We obviously haven't voted on it, but I think that's a fair assessment based on my reading of my colleagues. So I tend to lean toward the second.
I think the current ambiguity could put more restrictions on you than you want to have on you. I think it would be in your best interest to take this to someone and bring it back in a way that presents it, that gives you full authority to proceed. I'm hearing enough ambiguity that the last thing you want is for it to go down. So I think a deferral is going to be in your best interest. Is everybody in agreement with that?
I'd be willing, if you want to open the public hearing again, to ask them if they're agreeable to that. I mean, if they want an up or down vote, they might win. But I'll leave that to the chair.
And I would quickly note that there's no new filing fee with a deferral. So.
Maybe time's an issue if I don't.
Yeah, and we would certainly want to give them plenty of time. Okay, yes. So we're going to open up the public hearing just for the limited purpose of asking you, would you be amenable to a deferral or not?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. Well, then I'm going to close the public hearing, and I'm going to make a motion to defer. Joey, can we give them, just legitimate, can we give them 60 days in case it takes that long, but they could get on quicker if it was less than that? Because I would hate for it to not be prepared the next time.
Well, how soon can they get on?
March 15th.
And if they're not, if for some reason they weren't ready on the 15th, is there a problem with them saying, hey, we need to push it back?
No, there's not.
No fee?
There's not. Right. The hearing's been held within.
Are we still open on the hearing?
Yes.
Is that okay if we say March 15th and then?
I think that should probably, like I said, we've not approached an architect yet, but I'm assuming you're wanting basically a 3D rendering of.
It can be elevations.
It can just be a 2D elevation.
Yeah, I'm not.
Just a study.
Not full-blown drawings, anything like that.
I just think with their software, they would be able to do something like that where you could see it from.
It's just a button they have to push, really.
Because I'm like you, I'm more visual when it comes to stuff like that too.
Right.
So.
Okay, so I'm going to make a motion that we defer to March 15th, but to the extent necessary, if they need to push it back a meeting or two, that would certainly be fine as well.
I second that motion.
Okay, we've got a motion, we've got a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this case will actually be heard second on that agenda. We already have a deferred item that was deferred from a prior meeting. So. Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry, Joey, we may need a 5-minute.
Okay, the board's standing in recess, and we'll adjourn here in just a few moments.
It's funny because I was thinking, okay, so you got a slope and a slope. Where's the slope going to go?
Got a really great down slope, and I'm not looking for a partnering over there. Make this dormer. I would pull this dormer out and make that substantial. Go out the side, you know, where that deck was, and probably get it back to because the way it looks like, I mean, you know, looking at that, I mean, it looks like it goes, when you get a basement, you got a closet in the basement, you got upstairs, you got that, and it's a little cheaper, I think, to come out.
Interesting. Well, it is funny because Okay, Mr. Secretary, I can see.
They got a challenge too. I've got a good friend over there. I give her a hard time. Laura's like,
Thank you. In deference to our crowd.
Okay, well, board will be back in session. We'll call the next case, case 2012-19. Broadway at Lyle Properties Incorporated is the appellant and owner of the property located at 1912 Broadway. They're appealing the zoning administrator's interpretation of travel lanes as it pertains to a tri-panel billboard in the CSUZO district at the location listed above to install a 12 by 24 tri-panel billboard referred to the board under section 1740-180A. The applicant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740-180A as well. Looking for my PowerPoint here. The subject property is located on the north margin of Broadway between Lyle Avenue and 20th Avenue South. It is in the CF zone district. As you see here, the subject property from aerial photograph, the proposed structure would be located along the side of the building in the approximately in this location here. This is the building that you saw in the aerial photograph. The proposed billboard would be approximately to the left of this photograph in here, 20 feet off the front property line here. The permit was issued and obtained by the applicant such time it was noted by the zoning examiner that based upon the aerial photographs there that there are not 4 travel lanes along this stretch of Broadway. The code requires under section 1732 150 letter B number 12 that and it states that type 2 billboards shall be located on lots having frontage on public streets with 4 or more travel lanes or that are located within 300 feet and oriented to a limited access highway. The last sentence says, paired one-way streets with a minimum of 2 travel lanes in each direction shall be considered a 4-lane road in applying this provision. That is the section that's issued here. And with item A appeals, as the board knows, we have flipped our procedure slightly. The zoning administrator will go first, put out Metro's position, and the applicant will have the follow-up in a period for rebuttal, and then any other parties that would wish to address the board would come forward. We did take a couple of photographs here showing right out in front of the subject property the portions of Broadway. And forget my label at the bottom. I obviously cut and pasted from a prior case. But with that, I'll turn it over to Terry Cobb this time.
Good afternoon. I'm Terry Cobb, Director of the Department of Codes and Building Safety, and I'm here to address the board today as in the acting capacity as the Metropolitan Zoning Administrator. The case before you is an item A case challenging the zoning administrator's interpretation of the zoning code or application of the zoning code, and this issue, in my mind, it actually isn't all that complex. But it's an issue that I think is properly before the Board of Zoning Appeals in that I don't recall that the department has ever previously seen this particular issue and acted on it previously. And I don't recall that we've had to make the interpretation that this particular application caused us to make. And that is for type 2 monopole billboards, one of the requirements is it must be located on a lots that have frontage on public streets with 4 or more travel lanes. This particular section, this particular location at 1912 Broadway is that particular stretch of Broadway, although Broadway has in some places 7 travel lanes in its length from 1st to 21st. This particular stretch goes from the forks at West End Avenue and Broadway, which our de facto historian would probably note is where the Coca-Cola sign used to be, okay? So you know where I'm talking about, down to 21st Avenue at Vanderbilt University. And this is at 1912 Broadway. Again, this is JJ's Market, is well known to many people. That's the property we're talking about. In this particular stretch of Broadway, and I think the engineers for the appellant have done a really good job presenting the case for you if you've had the opportunity to read that. And if you look at some photographs of the street, they'll go, well, that's obviously 4 travel lanes. And then you start looking at a little more detail at the street, and you realize that there are parking stalls marked in the 2 outside travel lanes by the curb. And in this particular case, these travel lanes, if that should be the determination, allow for on-street parking 22 out of 24 hours of the day. Only 2 hours during the day from 7 till 9 a.m. are these parking spaces, do these parking spaces not allow on-street parking in the outside lanes. So out of an abundance of caution, and I think particularly because we're dealing with a billboard issue, we took a very conservative approach, and we ruled that these were not, it was not a public street with 4 travel lanes. Again, I would direct you to, that's basically our statement. I think the appellants and the engineers are well prepared to state their case, and the department is looking for some guidance from the board, and I think it would be appropriate that the board consider this and consider this interpretation. In preparation for my coming here today, I asked Joey Hargis to once again contact the Traffic and Parking Commission, and he reached out to Devin Doyle with Traffic and Parking, and the question was simply this: to the Traffic and Parking Commission, what is a travel lane? Because the term itself is not well defined in the zoning code. Is it well defined in the Traffic and Parking Code? Joey got a response, and he was just mentioning it to me prior to the meeting. I don't actually know what Devin Doyle's response was, but Joey, could you cover that?
I put on the screen, I'm sorry I didn't get that printed for you, but the code talks about, my question is does the Metro Code of Law that they enforce, Title 12, cover a definition for travel lanes? He looked at as far as travel lanes, and it says it doesn't define travel lane, but it does have this about traffic lanes. And for records purposes, let me read 12.12.110 traffic lanes. The Department of Public Works is authorized to mark traffic lanes upon the roadway of any street or highway where a regular alignment of traffic is necessary. B, a vehicle shall be driven as nearly as practical entirely within a single lane and shall not be moved from such lane until the driver is first ascertained that such movement can be made with safety. See there, upon a roadway which is divided into 3 lanes for two-way movement of traffic, a vehicle shall not be driven in the center lane except when overtaking and passing another vehicle where the roadway ahead is clearly visible in such lane. Lost my spot there. Such center lane is clear of traffic within a safe distance or in preparation for a left turn where such a center lane is at the time allocated exclusively to traffic moving in the direction the vehicle is proceeding, and is signposted or signalized to give notice of such. And then D, official signage can be placed to kind of spell out where those lanes are. Paraphrasing there, and subsection E sets out a penalty for violations of those.
And finally, I would say this to contemplate, if you just go out there and drive down this stretch of Broadway, you would sense that these are travel lanes. If the cars aren't parked on the outside lanes, then you're free to travel on them. Nothing would obstruct you from traveling, and nothing is posted to say that you can't. However, if there is parking in these lanes 22 out of 24 hours a day, certainly you could not travel along this stretch of Broadway on using those outside lanes. It appears to me to be where the zoning code says one thing and possibly the Traffic and Parking Commission anticipates something else. But as the board members well know, the Traffic and Parking Commission could get a request that they allow on-street parking in what otherwise has been or is a travel lane, whether it's on Broadway or 2nd Avenue, or I think the engineers pointed out a space on 10th Avenue. So it's a toss-up question for the zoning board. I'm sure, I've always believed if you give good people good information, they make good decisions. So, thank you.
Mr. Cobb, before you leave, I have a question. What did you base your decision on as far as what is a traveling lane?
Well, we felt that in this particular case, although it initially appeared to us and it appeared to our zoning examiner that there were 4 travel lanes.
Do they visit the site, or do they just kind of look at some maps and just kind of say, oh, well, yeah?
I think they looked at maps. Of course, we can use Google Maps. We can use all kinds of maps in the office while we are.
So how did this happen, I guess is what I'm getting at. You know, we have this, okay, we issued a permit, and then, oh, well, it's really not 4 lanes.
After you more closely examine the fact that this was issued, and you realize that what's going on is 22 out of 24 hours a day, they allow on-street parking in 2 of these 4 lanes. And I can recall myself parking on the side, of this road on the street in an outside lane going to Nashville or some of the other restaurants that are in the area, if you're lucky enough to find one of those spaces open. As I had previously said, this is a billboard application. Billboard applications can be, it's been our experience, they can be controversial. They can be subject to questioning. Out of an abundance of caution, we took the most conservative approach, and we felt like it would be appropriate for the board to review this and act on it.
I'm very familiar with this area of town. It's probably one of the streets I've traveled down most in my life. I went to university school. I went to Vanderbilt Law School, and my law firm, Rudy Wood, Winstead & Williams, is right next to Gigi's Cupcake. So I've probably been down this area more than most.
So are you recusing yourself here?
I'm not recusing myself. I have no financial interest in my building of my law firm either. We rented from the Rudy family. But I think I wanted to ask you if having an open four open lanes for 2 hours is justification for being 4 travel lanes under this law.
Well, it certainly appears, and we took the position we took, and I think I've fully explained it. And I think I would say, billboards are oriented towards vehicular traffic, not pedestrian traffic per se. They're outdoor advertising. They're intended to advertise for the motoring public. And to the extent that the billboard is allowed under the condition that there are 4 travel lanes, meaning there would be 4 lanes of vehicular traffic. So we're trying to judge what the intent of that requirement is, and we took a conservative approach to it.
But you're the zoning administrator. I mean, is there something that you can kind of hang your hat on by saying, well, since it's 22 out of 24 hours, only 2 lanes, that's just not good enough for the 4-lane requirement?
And I think that's exactly the position we took, that are these travel lanes the majority of the time? Well, no, it's much more than that. I don't know what the percentage is, but it's somewhere up around 80-something% of the time these lanes are for on-street parking. And that is the primary use of these 2 outside lanes a significant amount of the time that it's allowed.
Does it matter that meters were only recently put here or not in your ruling? Whether, 5 years ago there were no meters on some of these,
and I can recall parking in these lanes when there weren't meters.
Yeah, does that matter as far as your ruling is concerned?
I didn't take that in consideration, but I do recall now that they were available for on-street parking without meters.
Okay.
And this particular street is striped in such a way it would appear to be travel lanes, and then it would also be striped with the square corners around the designated areas which are available for parking the large majority of the time.
Well, let me ask you about that, because the applicant has, put some things in their packet about how it's striped based on, what it should be considered. What do you think of that argument, that it's striped a certain way, so these are 4 travel lanes?
Well, I think they made the point, and I think that they're correct in this, that the widths of the lanes and the fact they are striped in this manner would indicate they were travel lanes. I don't know the history. At one time, maybe there was not on-street parking in these lanes, but at some point in time, just as they later added the parking meters, at some point in time, they also designated the corners of the parking stalls where parking would be permitted when permitted.
I have a question, and I may have missed this, and so I apologize if I did, but could you go back over the part of your interpretation of lane? I mean, there are parts of Broadway, I mean, is it just the, I mean, what are we looking at in terms of defining the word lane? And I know I'm being kind of microscopic here, but there are parts of Broadway that do not have parking. I mean, so are we looking at just the parcel, the piece in front of it? Is that what you?
I think in this area there are 4 lanes. Okay.
But I'm saying, what part of the? Where is the writing that tells me that I can only look at one part of the lane, or am I to look at the whole street?
Well, the term used in the zoning requirement for when this type of billboard is allowed is Section 1732 150 B12. Type 2 billboards shall be located on lots that have frontage on public streets with 4 or more travel lanes.
And I'm saying, okay, and that's what you're asking us, but I'm saying Broadway has 4 travel lanes in most parts of Broadway.
That's the appellant statement.
I think what she's saying is, for example, in front of my law firm right next to Gigi's Cupcakes, there are 4 travel lanes. There's some metered parking further up near the Bristol, but there are 4 travel lanes, right? So I think what she's trying to say is, does it matter if further up the road you can point to 4 travel lanes? Where's the standard to meet the standard under the property owner where the 4 travel lanes have to be?
And he's exactly correct. That is exactly what I'm saying. I'm trying to understand, where does it say that the frontage only in front of where the sign is to be located is what I'm to look at in terms of defining the travel lane? Because Broadway, the street itself, has 4 travel lanes in most sections of it.
Okay. In this particular case, the billboards have to be located on lots which are on public streets that have 4 or more travel lanes. There's a really good photo in the information submitted by the appellant by James and Associates Engineers, and it's of a no parking sign, or a no parking 79, and it's at 1911 Broadway, directly across the street, directly across Broadway from the subject site. And on that pole are 2 signs. To the left of that sign, or east of that sign, no parking or standing at any time. So east of that sign, directly across the street from the subject site, there is no parking allowed. It is a travel lane from that point moving east. But from that point moving west, there's no parking allowed between the hours of 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Okay? So 22 out of 23 hours a day, if you proceed west of the subject site, they may be full of parked cars, so you couldn't travel or transverse that lane. And I think what I would like to see the board do is take the approach of being a reasonable man and making a reasonable judgment. Thank you. Or woman.
Thank you. Okay, you can proceed. You have, well, looks like 10 minutes. Well, no, 15 minutes, I bet you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, my name is Sean Henry, 315 Dedrick Street. I represent Mr. Marty Williamson with American Outdoor Advertising on my left. Mr. Jamie Gillespie of James Plus Associates is on my right. We have also handed to you today a packet of information. There's essentially 5 collective exhibits there. I'm going to reference the first 3. They simply mirror the testimony that I'm going to provide. Mr. Gillespie will speak about exhibit number 4, which contains his traffic analysis. Exhibit 5, Mr. Williamson will speak to. The issue regarding this lot, this particular lot, the questions that you were just entertaining are important because this parcel consists of 2 lots, Lot 22 and Lot 23. The billboard is proposed to go on Lot 22. In front of Lot 22, there is no on-street parking permitted. If we could go back, actually the photo there on the left, if you'll see where that truck is, the back of that truck is essentially where that parking space is, where the arrow is. That is in front of Lot 23, which is 1/2 of our parcel. The billboard is not going on to Lot 23. That's where the building is. The billboard is going on to Lot 22, where the parking lot is. There is no parking, as you can see here with this arrow. That is a complete curb cut, an open curb cut in front of Lot 22. So there is no on-street parking there. Likewise, the photo that was just up a few minutes ago across the street where that meter and no parking sign is, directly across the street, there's no parking at that corner either. So directly in front of Lot 22, there is 4 lanes of travel. There is no permitted on-street parking. Secondly, as to the definitions, the reason we're here is because our zoning code does not define what a travel lane is. And so the zoning code refers us to Webster's Third International Dictionary, unabridged, which does not define travel lane either, but it does define what a travel line is. It does not define travel lane, but defines a travel line as a line of travel. Further, our traffic and parking code, which Mr. Devin Doyle of Metro Public Works has referred to, does define what a laned roadway is. And under section 1204145 of our traffic and parking code, a laned roadway is defined as a roadway which is divided into 2 or more clearly marked lanes for vehicular traffic, period. There are some other definitions that we'd like for you to consider beyond what's in the traffic code and beyond the travel line definition in Webster's, and that is the U.S. DOT Federal Highway Administration publishes a booklet, a manual on uniform traffic control devices. And that document, it's a big book, but it defines what lane line markings are. And lane line markings are defined as white pavement marking lines that delineate the separation of traffic lanes that have the same direction of travel on a roadway. We think that definition is very applicable to your consideration here today. Thirdly, the Traffic and Parking Commission acted in 2006, specifically on October 9, by passing a resolution number 2006-10 that authorized 2-hour parking meters on both sides of Broadway from 19th Avenue South to 21st Avenue South, effective 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Some point after that, I suppose, they increased the hours of parking. But when they authorized those meters for on-street parking, what they did not do is they did not prohibit travel in those same lanes. So what we have here, worst case scenario, is we have a dual purpose or dual use travel lane where sometimes you can park and sometimes you can travel. The Traffic and Parking Commission did not prohibit in any way, as Mr. Cobb referenced, that prohibit vehicles from traveling within these parking areas at any time during the day. What that means is if no one is parking in these spaces during the hours that they're permitted to park, you've got 4 lanes of travel that's available for travel. You would not get a ticket by a Metro police officer if you were driving in the area where parking is permitted at any time during the day, so long as there's not a car there to obstruct you. So again, so long as there's not a car parked, you are free to travel down that lane, and that road functions as 4 travel lanes. Finally, before I hand it over here to Mr. Gillespie, our zoning code does not say that travel lanes that serve a dual purpose, parking and travel, are therefore excluded as travel lanes. And I think that's the interpretation that the zoning administrator is making. They're simply saying if something is going on besides pure travel 100% of the day, then we're excluding that as consideration for a travel lane. Our zoning code doesn't say that. And so finally, based on the lane line markings, I just read that definition, but based on the lane line markings of this segment of Broadway, clearly there's opportunity for both 4 lanes of travel and periodic parking on the street. Council Lady Gilmore was here earlier. She spoke in favor of this as an investment, a good investment in the neighborhood, and she supports what this request is all about and frankly, our interpretation of it. Finally, I think Mr. Doyle referenced that there may be a penalty for not abiding by the lane markings, and it goes back to whether or not you'd get a ticket if you were driving in this outside lane where parking is also permitted. That provision clearly does not apply here because there's no marking indicating that you cannot travel in the area where there is permitted parking during certain hours of the day. I yield my time to Mr. Gillespie.
Appreciate the opportunity to be here before you today. Mr. Henry asked us to take a look at the roadway, and so we have a history of doing traffic and transportation type projects. And this route, one thing that we look at in this situation is route continuity. This particular section of Broadway, US 431, State Route 106. The first photo that we had there, photo number 1, does show, in fact, the 4 lanes of travel, and I think you can note that there is a billboard located there, and I think that's roughly 700 feet from the location that we're looking at. Photo number 2, again, the main thing that we picked up on this is the striping. The way that the striping with the white broken lines, that does indicate travel lane and traffic lanes. One thing that I'll point out, driver expectancy, what we typically see and plan for is signage, something if you're going to restrict a lane or something like that, as you're driving along, typically you would see some signage that would say this is lanes restricted or merges or drops off, and we didn't see any signage that would indicate that in this area, and it does appear that it's set to allow 4 lanes of traffic and 4 lanes of travel. And that photo number 3, we actually were out there and observed 4 lanes, all 4 lanes in use, and also the same thing with that photo 3A. And then if I could quickly go to photo 4, that's a picture that shows the area right in front of the lot, the parcel that's in question, where you can see that it is striped for 4 lanes of travel. No parking is allowed in that particular area. Let's see, and then we looked at this.
Wait a minute, can we stop for that picture? This is the curb cut. You say they can't have parking. That would hurt your client's business if a car parked in front of the area that people are supposed to get in their parking lot, correct?
Yes, sir, that's true. So
you can't use that as an example of there's no parking, because that's the way that people from Broadway get into your client's business.
Except that's absolutely fine. I just noticed that there's also intersections there, and it may be partially because of intersection safety with Lyle Street. In thinking of the route continuity, looking at photo 5, as you can see through there, it's clearly striped to allow 4 lanes of traffic, and photo 6 also shows that. And we looked at the section from West End to 21st Avenue, and of course, I think he's already shown photo 8. If you could go down to photo 8, that's the photo of the lot that's directly across from the parcel that's in question. And then, of course, photo 9 is right there at 21st Avenue.
Excuse me, photo 8, it says no parking or standing anytime. Are you claiming that indicates that is a line of traffic, or is that just the clear view that's required for egress and ingress of streets. Isn't that where Lyle intersects?
Yes, it's close to where Lyle intersects. Just basically indicating that parking's not allowed there. That it's
you can't park in front of a street.
You can't
That's
park
what it's saying.
in that area, and so it functions as a travel lane. And then if we could go to, what we wanted to do is to focus, I guess, primarily on the route continuity, as I mentioned, and also the striping. And so we went to other areas just to take a look and see how it's handled in other areas within the city. And at 10th Avenue North near Commerce Street, they have on-street parking there. It's obviously sufficiently wide for 4 lanes of travel, but it appears the way that it's striped without outside lines, with just the center line striping, that it's set to function as a 2-lane roadway. And then photo number 11 shows 18th Avenue with similar on-street parking on one side of the roadway with no designations for the striping, so it appears to be 2-lane. And then photo 12, the last photo, does show striping, and it also indicates a bike lane. So just the importance of the striping and the driver expectation for laneage, it shows the bike lane and then the on-street parking as well. And so from our perspective, from what we reviewed, it appears that it is a 4-lane, consistent section of 4-lane roadway.
Questions? Oh, we got one more? Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much for your time and consideration today. I guess if I could just sort of take you through my process a little bit, you understand where I'm coming from. I'm a 28-year veteran of the out-of-home business, and I never dreamed back in August when I did a ground lease with this property that I would end up here today, because I certainly don't intend to ever try to put a sign somewhere that doesn't belong or where the code doesn't allow. In my opinion, when I looked at the road, it was 4 lanes to me, and I never thought of it in any other way. So then I begin my process, which is to, after I have the ground lease with the property owner, I get with my contractor and we decide the configuration and what we want to do and what we want to apply for. And then we get our blueprints and basically have a contract ready with the sign company who fabricates our signs. And basically we're waiting for the permit. And Mr. Bumgarner met with Mr. Thermopolis, and I want to say this, he's a very thorough person. He does not just easily give out a permit for a sign. He's very thorough, looks through everything, and I think is very confident when he makes a decision. And so at that point, once we had the permit, I actually initiated a contract, signed it with it was sitting on my desk ready to go. Mr. Bumgarner says, we've got the permit, great, I sign it, email it to my sign fabricator, and I've bought a sign. And then virtually the same day or the next day, I get word that the permit has been canceled. So I now am the proud owner of a sign with no home for it, and really feel like that Mr. Thermopolis was correct when he initially gave the permit. And I think he even says that in his letter when he notes that, according to his mapping system and to his photos, it's a 4-lane road. So I think that Mr. Thermopolis was correct, and I just appreciate your consideration.
Mr. Chairman, excuse me, if I may, if we could go back to a slide of the engineer's presentation, Mr. Hargis, page number 3, photo number 4. I just want to be certain there's no confusion about what exists out in front of this lot 22 where the billboard is proposed. Can you pull that up, Mr. Hargis? It's page 3, photo 4. That one there, if you can enlarge that. You'll notice this is where the zoning hearing sign is there. It looks like it fell down, but this is looking straight out of that parking lot again. The other photo that was taken as photo 8, which shows a parking meter and a no parking sign, is in the right-hand corner. If you go back to, that's meter and that sign, if you go back to page 4. Photo 4 is in the far right corner, and Joey's roughly showing it where the little hand print is. So There's no parking anywhere in front of this Lot 22 where the billboard is proposed to go. So those are clearly for travel lanes. They are and can be used as a turn lane, I think Mr. Harper referenced. You can use the right lane to turn right onto Lyle Street. You can use this farthest, the left through lane as a turn lane onto Lyle Street. The point again is whether you look at this purely as lot frontage, there's 4 lanes here. There's no permitted parking whatsoever. So
you said that this is concerning lot 22? Or 23, I'm sorry.
Lot 22 is where the billboard is proposed.
Okay, and the permit says lots 22, 23, John H. Williams. So it appears the permit is for both lots.
I believe the permit is based on the parcel, the tax parcel. The billboard is not.
Okay, so it's your definition. So why should we pick one of the definitions over the other?
What I'm saying is
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just curious why the permit says lots 22, 23.
The permit was filled out by the codes department.
So one can join building and parking lot. So
I understand they're conjoined. So why now do we choose only to address the 22 portion of the 22, 23 lot? I mean, if we're splitting hairs, I need a good reason.
Well, Mr. Baumgartner is the individual who pulled the permit on behalf of my client. The permit was filed.
I mean, I have to say, the 22 portion is a compelling argument. I mean, it's a great place to hang, but I guess I'm looking for a good reason not to consider the 23 portion of the 2 lots.
Well, there's a building on 23. Lot 23 contains the building, which is J&J Market. No billboard can be placed on Lot 23. That's one half of the parcel. Lot 22 is the parking lot. It's available for the billboard to be placed. That's where it's intended to be placed.
Thank you.
Before we run out of time, if I could just mention, I'm sorry. Okay. There was a billboard assigned just maybe 300 feet down on the corner at the Choose location, and it went down. So it's not like we're trying to put something in this section of highway that hasn't been there before. I thought that was worth noting. And also the same day the permit was issued, really I think another sign company sort of waved a red flag, or otherwise I'm not sure I'd be here today. I think the permit would still be in place and the sign would be in the air.
Did you have a question?
Well, I had a question about the lot 22 and 23 because it does seem like they are conjoined and have been as long as I can remember the property, and JJ's Market opens into 22. So I guess I'm not sure. It seems like a good case, but yet I'm not buying personally that I should think about them as 2 separate pieces of property in terms of what you're trying to do, since it seems like that it's my understanding that it's rented as a whole, it's used as a whole. One opens into the other.
But the application is the sign.
And the permit was for both. I mean, I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out is how if I were to go down that road, how could I justify it? And that's the question.
Yeah, I'll just go back to the definition. Billboards shall be located only on lots, not parcels, only on lots that have frontage on public streets with 4 or more travel lanes. And we have supplied in the packet here, this is a black and white version of it, but this is a Google map, depicts the J&J Market aerially relative to the parking lot, relative to the cars that park.
I understand the argument now, thank you.
And Mr. Williamson can speak to the area that he's leasing through the ground lease.
I'd like to ask the engineer, do you know the history of that road, street? How long it's been 4 lanes or 2 lanes, or whatever you want to determine it?
Unfortunately, I do not know the history of how long it's been striped that way.
I mean, do we know whether or not it's always been 4 lanes with no striping at one point, or was it built originally for 2 lanes, or?
I do not have that exact information.
One of the businesses over there got excited about having parking on them because they were having trouble with parking lots. And this just happened about the past 5 years.
Just curious.
You said, let's talk to the owner. You said you bought the ground lease for this property?
Yes.
Okay. So you bought it for the J&J Market, what we know is and the art gallery next door? or just J&J Market?
Well, the owner owns the whole entire parcel.
So do you have the ground lease
with him?
Do you have the ground lease for the art gallery and J&J?
No, the ground lease for the billboard, I'm only leasing this much ground.
Oh, so you just bought the lease for the, so you could put up a billboard
on the property.
Okay, so you don't have an interest in the buildings at all, you just this little place so you could put a billboard.
Right.
Okay, well, I didn't know that, thanks.
And in reality, if you wanted to, you could put a pole up and put an elbow with a double elbow on that pole and place that sign over either parcel you wanted to, could you not?
True.
Okay. So I don't really see that has a bearing to me on the footprint of where the pole is, but that's.
Okay, I can't remember. Is there opposition? Is there opposition? There's no opposition? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, I would say we close the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And there's no rebuttal?
Oh, I'm sorry. Geez, you're right. I'm sorry. Yeah, my bad. There's no opposition to the, yeah, okay.
Okay. But I don't know if the codes administrator...
No, the zoning administrator doesn't get a rebuttal.
Okay.
Okay, so close the public hearing. Discussion?
I'm just going to put this out here from somebody who has, I'm embarrassed to say, made a $50 contribution to the city for the 5 minutes that I was in the parking space from 7 to 9. That I feel like if there's 1 minute that car can travel down that road, it is a 4-lane road. Because I do recall that the businesses around there had requested on-site parking, but because of congestion, they allowed that to be a for travel lanes. And I think the future of that congestion will probably open up for longer times, depending on how that area grows. So for me, I feel like if there's a car driving down that for 1 minute as an allowed vehicle lane, it's considered a 4-lane road. But that's just, if it was always parking and stripe for parking, I could understand how that would work, but I've contributed to that moment, so I feel pretty strongly about it.
And I totally appreciate that argument, and if the board goes with that argument, then it's going to make the zoning administrator's job a lot easier because they'll just have to count and see if there's a sign. We probably won't hear these again, but I tend to lean the other way, just having been down that road many times a week in my 20 years in Nashville, it's rare that I've seen that stretch have 4 lanes of traffic. I don't go down that road. It's between 7 and 9. And I went at lunchtime today just because I knew this was coming up and I wanted to see what the traffic was like. And, you couldn't find a parking space, and there were for the block before, the block of, and the block after, at least of this property, there were only 2 lanes of moving traffic. So it's a very difficult decision. I think it's much more complicated than it appears simply on the surface based on what I've heard from all sides. But, I'm having a tough time thinking of it as a 4-lane road.
I think I would concur with Mercedes. I think that the fact that it is permissible at some points in the day to use this as a travel lane makes it a travel lane. And were it marked with a solid line, that would indicate to me that it were, the fact that it can be, therefore makes it one. And were it marked, and I don't think the answer is necessarily just whether a sign is there, but the point is it's not marked as it's marked to be a travel lane, and it's clear that it's permissive for it to be a travel lane at some points of the day. I can respect that. I travel down that portion of the road a lot, and there is often parking there. But the fact remains, it is marked such that travel is permitted at certain points of the day down that road, and I think that's the difference for me, the markings.
Well, and when no one has been able to define travel lane, and so we all have our, you know, I mean, we have travel line and we have traffic lane, and that's about as close as we've gotten. And I think everybody has an idea of, you know what.
And I think the difference is whether it's practical, you know, in reality, is it practical that you are able to use that as a travel lane versus whether it is marked and permissible to be one. And I see it as it's marked and permissible versus whether it's practical to actually use it as one.
And so I guess the question on that would be, you know, looking at applying that to other parts of the city, then, you know, Hillsborough Village would be, you know, 4 lanes, even though it's extraordinarily rare, the same 2 hours a day that this is 4 lanes. 5 Points in East Nashville, very well trafficked, but rarely 4 lanes of traffic, and that's what I'm struggling with. Is that it seems like, you know, it resonated what Terry Cobb said about, you know, billboards being built for vehicular traffic, and so when I'm looking at it, thinking, well, is the vehicular traffic on average, even 50% for me, on average, 4 lanes, and I think it's not.
But I disagree with Mercedes and Stacy, and this is why. I think the law could have been easily written to say lanes of traffic, or lanes, without saying travel lanes, but they went and they said travel lanes because they want car traffic to be in these 4. There are a lot of 4-lane roads, and they could have just said 4 lanes, but they said travel lanes. And the zoning administrator basically says that, you know, 50% was his standard. Maybe that's not the right standard, but that's what he used. I think billboards are such unique items that when they pass these laws, they want to make sure that it's very clear where they can be and where they couldn't be. And you could argue what a lane of traffic is, but a travel lane is where a car can go. And I would think that at least half of the time a car should be able to go based on this law, not just 1 minute. Or
I wonder what happens if you had a 2-lane road with parking on both sides and there were signs that said no game day parking. Now, is that a 4-lane travel? Or, you know, and I don't think we have this in our city, but if, you know, a lot of cities do have streets that have parking on both sides, but you're not allowed to park, you know, if it's snowing or, you know, if, you know, for removal, or you can, I'm getting to the point of if there's ever a car allowed, you know, you do see streets a lot of times that have parking meters, and the parking meters get bags on them for preparation for an event. Is that now a travel lane?
And I think adding on to what you're saying, that the difficulty is if we don't come up with clear guidance. I can appreciate what you say, but I think it's easy to give clear guidance when you say that it's not marked to be a parking lane, it's allowed to be a travel lane, or, I mean, either way you go, there has to be clear guidance to make. But to say you've got to come up with a number of 50% travel use, or we do have lanes that say you can only park, you can't park Monday through Friday. So if you can drive down them Saturday and Sunday, is it now a travel lane? And I think that becomes very, I mean, it gets hairy, and I think it's, you know, it becomes difficult to ask. I think that the clear language of travel lane is, are you allowed to travel in it? And at some point, if there are points in time where the markings permit me to do so, and there are times of day that I can, then it is a travel lane. But I can appreciate what you're saying in terms of impact other places.
Well, and every time I read a case, I think, boy, if it were just written another way, or if it was just clear. And I thought, well, we wouldn't. If everything was that clear, then
that's why the council people speak first and leave.
And can I suggest something, because I found this very intriguing. When Mr. Cobb said that we put up billboards on 4 lanes so there would be enough cars basically for it to appeal to. Last night I had tried to figure out, why do we put it on 4 lanes, and that never dawned on me, because it's not been my experience that the council's particularly worried about what's good for the sign companies. I thought last night that it's just, we're trying to designate it's really got to be a commercial area. You know, it's got to be on a street that is commercial so it won't end up on Chris Whitson's road. And so to me, Broadway's as commercial as they come. I mean, you know, and so it is, in my mind, under my test, I don't know what the council intended. None of us do. And so, I mean, I can't imagine they were trying to protect the sign companies. I think they're trying to protect the people who are there, and we're all in a commercial area. So anyway, I throw that out just for that's what I thought it was.
I actually feel like that's probably a 4-lane road. And through the innovation of parking people and the necessity for more parking, they've adapted dual use thing. I mean, I remember when certain roads were only 2 lanes and they had this center divider strip, that little concrete thing you could drive over. And that became a turning lane. You know, now we've got 5 lanes that created in the same width of space that we had 4 lanes. I just feel like this is a 4-lane road that's been semi-adapted to be both 2-lane and 4-lane. So
but if it's 22 hours of the day, it's only basically 2 lanes. I mean, is that a 4-lane road today?
If they can tow your
a
car
travel
and fine you
lane
for parking in it because somebody needs to travel in it?
But the rule doesn't say,
We're talking about travel lanes.
If we're getting down to splitting hairs, which apparently we are, the code doesn't say it has to be 24 hours a day to be a travel lane.
Well, the code speaks about travel lanes, and if 22 hours of the day, it's only 2 lanes, and then
So does
2 hours.
Does that mean when it's 20 hours a day, it's different than when it's 22 or 10 hours a day?
Mr. Cobb said a majority of the time. That was his standard.
But where did the word majority come from? It's a travel lane or it's not?
It came from the zoning administrator. He says it's...
Yeah, so, well, I mean, and that is, I mean, I think that's a good point, is that the zoning, the professionals that we have to interpret the codes have said, no, it's not 4 lanes. That's why we're here today. If they had looked at it and said it's 4 lanes, then we wouldn't be here at all, unless there were opposition, and the opposition appealed. And so, I mean, I think that I know we're trying to decide, but that is why it's hairy, is because we have some engineers that have come in and with a study to say, look, it looks like it's 4 lanes, and this is their professional opinion, which I certainly respect their work. And yet we have the zoning folks that have said, no, it's not 4 lanes, it's 2 lanes. And again, professional people who have looked at it and said that. And so,
I respectfully disagree with that because Mr. Thermopoulos actually offered the permit, he paid for the lease, he bought the sign, and then it was withdrawn. I mean, the question is that also the person who spends all day every day, was he wrong, or was this just a matter of, well, what's the right analysis?
Technically, we're only concerned with, in my opinion, and I think as our rules are laid out, we're only concerned with whether or not Mr. Cobb was in error in his position, not Mr. Thermopoulos. I guess, we're only concerned about what the code says in so much as did Mr. Cobb read it wrong, or when it comes down to it, is it not his job to interpret it? And if that is what he did, is it obvious that he misinterpreted? That's what we're being asked to vote on, I believe.
Actually, because I've been wondering that myself, it is, did he act in error or did he act arbitrarily? And I'd like to say up front, you did not act arbitrarily. There is a very solid reason for what you did, but the question is, did he act in error?
And I have to say that, once again, the appellant's case, I'm always surprised. I don't know why I'm surprised, but I always look at the docket first when I get the package, and I'm like, here we go, another sign. And then, I read through Mr. Henry's or Mr. White's presentation, I'm like, wow, I didn't think about it that way. Even bringing up the lot 22, 23, I mean, like that's a very good argument. But I don't know that it makes Mr. Cobb wrong, for what that's worth.
Unfortunately, the code is not clear, and that's why this panel is here.
This is kind of one of the craziest ones.
I personally think it's both a 2-lane and a 4-lane street.
I think everyone has pretty firm opinions. Is it time for a motion?
It's not a chicken, though. I'd like to say that.
I'd like to say this. I don't sense Mr. Cobb's going to be upset if we, but I mean, either way, I think, but anyway, that's.
He actually kind of clearly stated that.
Okay, I am perfectly prepared to lose this motion, but I am going to make a motion that the zoning administrator did act in error because a travel lane is defined by whether a car can legally travel through that lane without emphasis to a minimum or a maximum number of time during the day. In other words, it's a travel lane is it striped and ready for cars, and would you not get a ticket if you drove in that lane?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, I'm sorry. We've got a motion. We've got a second. And I know it's not unanimous. So all in favor? Aye. Let's raise hands. 4. Okay. All opposed? 3. Appellant wins their case.
If the appellant stay behind, if you don't mind, if you'll stay after I run through the next case, I need to discuss some procedural things with you. The next case is case 2012-20. Mr. Chairman, you ready to proceed with the, okay. I've lost my agenda.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hey. The next case before us, case 2012-20, Westmead Liquors, the appellant, Fan Properties, owner of the property located at 5402 Harding Pike, requesting a variance in front setback in the CS district to replace the existing ground sign with a new digital ground sign at 4 foot 2 inches by 7 foot 8 inches, referred to the board under section 1732.070. The applicant has alleged the board would have jurisdiction under section 1740.180B. None of the applicants are present. Is there any opposition present to case 20? All right, we do have parties here opposed. Each side will have 15 minutes. Let me run through our testimony first. For records purposes, you have received a letter from the Belmead Highlands Neighborhood Association in opposition to the request, and you should have copies of those before you, as well as comments from the traffic and parking folks. The subject property is located on the west margin of Harding Pike, just south of Harding Place, and sort of across the road from Page Road where it intersects there. It is in the CS zone district. The subject parcel is the property you see in red. The variance before you is ground signs are required to have a 15-foot setback. That is measured from, in this case, would be the leading edge of this sign to the right-of-way. The request is 0, and I do want to cover that. The existing sign is what you see here is a legally non-conforming pole sign. It actually is non-conforming in 2 respects. One is to setback. This sign sits in the TDOT right-of-way for the street, so that the sign and as well as some of this parking, which you see here, is actually in the right-of-way itself. The sign is secondly non-conforming as to the motion of this top portion of the sign. That current sign rotates around sort of like a globe on that pole. Our current code does not permit that, but that sign is legally non-conforming as to that. The adjoining properties, Crystal to the north, the Flower Express property is immediately south, and the existing pole sign is located here. The proposal would be to erect the new sign closer to the building on their property out of the right-of-way, but they are requesting to be with the leading edge, which you saw in the photograph of this LED sign, to the property line. As respect to LED, the location of the LED panels does conform with the LED section of the code, and its requirements is spacing to residential districts. It does conform with that. However, it would be in violation of the setback. These are the final 2 photographs I have of the site. With that, I'll turn over to the applicant.
Hold on one second, Joy.
Please.
Because I always have to ask this question, because I'm always confused. Replacing one of these panels with an LED would be permitted, or?
Yes, the zoning code.
If nothing else changed.
Nothing else. Well, the existing sign, it's where it sits today, is in the TDOT right-of-way. So we could not allow them to replace it in its current location.
Oh, I see.
It has to move out of the right of way and get to its at least 15 feet back, because that 15-foot setback is determined by the leading edge of the ground sign is below 10 feet in height. So when the clearance here is less than 10 feet, the setback's required to be 15 feet off the right of way.
And Joey, where about compared to the existing sign would the proposed sign be?
The applicants, I believe, have a drawing. I'll get that'll pass out. I'll show the existing location by survey that they have. So I'll let them speak to that under their portion.
Joey, I'm sorry.
Please.
Can you help me here?
Sure.
If they were moving, if they were putting this LED sign on there, they would be allowed to in the current place because it's illegal non-conforming?
In the current place, as far as replacing at this location, yes, the location is legally non-conforming as it stands today. They are offering, and it is in the TDOT right-of-way, they are offering to remove this sign out of the right-of-way. The state could always come through and take this sign and pay the owner for the parking spaces in the sign. They're removing this sign, and by doing so, when we issue a new permit to replace this sign, it cannot be back in the right-of-way.
Okay.
It has to be on their property.
But they could put, according to regulations, they could put this LED sign in the current location from a non-conforming use? You
may have a different appeal before the board dealing with non-conformity, and fortunately, that's not before us today. Okay. Because we would actually need a little help from legal counsel at what point we could allow it to be replaced. So I don't really want to walk down that road too far with you all as to confuse the issue.
But the LED is okay in the proposed location?
In the proposed location, it is fine, but for it violates the setback.
But the setback is being required because of the right-of-way?
The setback is always required from the right-of-way based on the height of the sign. And then subset of that, the LED component of this, the council passed an ordinance saying it has to be X number of feet from a residential zone property based upon it having an LED and its height on that pole. It does conform to that portion of it in the proposal.
So if 15 feet is required, what is the variance?
15 feet. They're asking to be right at the edge of the right-of-way.
Okay, and so how far is the edge from the pole?
The edge from the pole would be the distance. It's approximately, and guys, y'all can clarify this during your time. What we're talking about is the right-of-way would be here. The pole's approximately, if that's 5'9", probably 2.5, 3 feet, somewhere in there.
Okay, so the pole's probably 3 feet inside the property line?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. We measure our setbacks to the leading edge of the sign rather than to the base of the pole itself.
Thank you.
And Mr. Jones, does that, I don't want to leave you stranded if
We'd like to get as confused as possible before the testimony. That way you're digging yourself out of a hole right away.
Well said, David.
Signs are complex, so I do want to make sure I've got you all on the same page as far as what the code requires for you.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn. If you could give us your name in 15 minutes of time.
My name is Andy Howell, and I'm the project manager for Westmead Liquors. This has been an interesting afternoon, and we thank you for your time. And I'm going to try to dig out of the hole before I really talk about what I wanted to talk about. First, we did apply to replace the existing sign, and we're told that Metro didn't have the authority to do that because it was in the state right-of-way. So we have talked to TDOT, the Department of Transportation, and basically we're told that not only would they not give us a permit, but we're ultimately required to move the sign out of the state right-of-way. So therefore, the hardship is in fact the fact that we're in the state right-of-way. The sign, the total width of the sign is 7'8", so the center line of the pole we're proposing is 3 feet 10 inches. Is that right? Yeah. From the property line. As I said earlier, the hardship here is that the existing sign is in the state right-of-way. As Joey pointed out, the existing sign is non-conforming in two regards. We have lowered the height of this sign to 15 feet in conjunction with numerous conversations with Councilman Evans, and in fact, she felt it was very important that we in fact try to comply with what she and a lady at the Planning Commission, I've forgotten her name, perceived as being a future sign ordinance that might actually impact this area. So we have, everything about putting a sign in this location is a catch-22. So we have tried to come up with the best combination of getting it away from the adjacent residences, the best combination of giving us some sense of marketability, and also getting it off of the state right-of-way. So I believe that you have Public Works approval. I believe they've approved it. Emily called me this morning and said she couldn't be here. I believe she supports it. She certainly has had a big impact on the overall design of the sign. And obviously, we're here to ask for your support. Carl Bell is with A1 Sign Company, and he just has he has some facts he wants to share with you about the sign itself.
Yes, I'm Carl with A1 Signs. The existing sign we're taking out obviously is grandfathered in and non-conforming and all that. It's approximately 23.5 feet tall. So we're taking that sign down, taking a rotating sign that people do not like, taking that away, taking the marquee down, and that's approximately 120 square feet of sign we're taking down and only putting back 57 square feet. That's one half the sign, and we're actually going to be 9 feet shorter than the sign is now, and really we're going to be about 9 feet from the road that the other side of the sign is now. So really we're shorter, half the size, and 9 feet back. And the reason why our marquee is the height that it is because there's houses behind the building that you can't see the sign from that we have to be so many feet from them. And the lower you go, the further you got to be from them. So we're right at 10 feet, so that's exactly where we're at right now. We can do that. So we didn't have to do anything other. If we put it right where we're talking about putting it, we're fine with the residential part.
So the adjacent residential area is behind
You can't see it through the building. Okay. It's past the railroad tracks, past the creek, past the bridge.
No, I grew up over there.
And we have to be 238 feet from the closest corner, according to Richard Threopolson. We have to be 238 feet, and we're going to be 244 feet approximately.
The residents that are in, excuse me. Sorry. The residents that are impacted by this are on the other side of the railroad track and the other side of the creek. But anyway, that's still the adjacent residences that we have to comply with the distance requirement from.
And I bet I know the answer to this, but the road right-of-way has expanded since the sign was originally put in, correct? I mean, nobody just went and put it in the middle of the right-of-way. Okay,
correct.
I'm sorry, I have the LED part of the sign, we have a letter from the neighborhood association talking about moving letters, and I know that on billboards that they tend to change instantly. Is this the type of sign that can have flashing, by Jack Daniels or whatever, in moving letters, or is this a static changeover? Have an image.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Mr. Cobb can probably answer this question better, but there is a rule in Metro that your sign can only rotate like 8 times a minute or whatever that is. Well, we will conform to whatever that is.
The 8-second rule.
8-second rule, whatever.
Yeah, and that's what I thought. I just wanted to make sure that there was a concern addressed, and that my understanding was that it wouldn't be.
No, sir.
The thing that I'm
like everybody else.
confused about, you have a picture here with our great Tennessee Jack Daniels on it, and another picture it just says, "Welcome to Westmead." Are you having an LED sign or a digital sign that will be able to show photographs and things like this?
Well, actually, with the technology today, it is a message center that makes it look like a picture, but it's not actually a picture. It's just a digitally imprinted.
So logo. It's not the traditional red sign that we see with just letters.
No, sir. This particular sign has a black background, and believe it or not, there's 7,000 shades of red you can do to do different, welcome to.
So the picture that you have of Jack Daniel's whiskey on here, you'll be able to have that kind of picture on your sign. Is that what you're saying?
You could if you programmed it for that.
Okay.
And your hardship is the property shape, I'm guessing, given that the right-of-way is making the property smaller, and I noticed there's a sanitary sewer easement. If you were in compliance, would you be in that sanitary sewer easement, or do you know?
We had it marked for the Tennessee One Call, and I did not see any kind of markings stating that we were anything. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
What's your response to the letters from the Belmead Highlands Neighborhood Association that basically says that this is conversions of two major state routes, it's a very dangerous intersection, and this is, they use the word confusing ingress to Crystals next door, that sounds like they don't think this is a good location for a digital sign?
Well, I haven't seen the letter. So I don't have the benefit of that, but I mean, I think the intersection of Highway 70 and Highway 100 is a well-known intersection. So, but it's not our intention to have this be a flashing sign. We're trying to.
And you can address that on rebuttal, the letter itself.
That'd be great. I'll do that.
Okay, unless there are any other questions, perhaps you should save your 1033 for rebuttal. Okay, thank you. In the King line of disclosure, I have given this liquor store my money many times before. So I think y'all need to know that.
I think I'll have to discuss the same. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Mina Johnson. I'm also a supporter of this wine store. I bought quite a bit of wine at the store. However, in this opportunity, I am expressing my opposition to LED sign part, message part. I understand that area is currently zoned CS, so legally they can have LED sign in the current ordinance. However, many of our neighbors generally are not fond of LED sign. Maybe because of this brightness to the eyes, and message board is generally general message is obnoxious. That's what I hear from most of neighbors. So what I want to ask to the applicant is, first of all, would like to hear applicant withdraw this application and come up with a better sign to reflect the neighborhood. We did have a Westmead Community Plan update back in 2009. And in this community plan, we used to call a sub-area plan. We specifically talked about that section. That section is called T3 NC, which is neighborhood, suburban neighborhood center, which is supposed to reflect a suburban area, and the area should be not intensive commercial, but commercial in a sense reflect neighborhood area. That's what we categorize that area. So in the future, all these existing property owners or business owners decide to do some updating, we are hoping reflect surrounding neighborhood area, which is very mature trees, surrounded by mature trees, front setback, walkability, friendly to neighborhood. And having this LED sign close to right way does not accomplish this neighborhood plan, in our opinion.
Do you live in this area close to this
Yes,
sign?
I live 2 miles towards Bellevue from that store.
So 2 miles, so you can't see the sign from
No.
your house. Well, why do you care so much about it then?
Because I do drive that area quite frequently, and every time when I see Walgreens sign or A1 sign or Ace Hardware sign, it really pops my eyes, and I think that's many people's reaction. And of course, yes, legally they can have sign, but if we have opportunity to express our feeling, this could be a better opportunity. And also the area, I think Belmead Highland Neighborhood Association might have addressed. In this particular section is really quite confusing because Highway 100 coming from town to Bellevue area, and then Highway 70 coming. In the middle, Highway 100 is yield. And most of the time, when I'm coming down from Highway 70 towards town, I have to have a second guess. Is the car coming from Highway 70 really yield for me? Are they slowing down? Or am I safe to go? So in our opinion, having LED sign right front of confusing intersection is danger to public. And as I understand, this will be a message board. So I'm guessing they want to send message, Chardonnay $9.99 this week or Jack Daniel's special, whatever the message they want to send. But if the driver is distracted by reading those messages, it will add more danger. And also, I understand that the existing sign is legally non-conforming, and due to Highway 70 and Highway 100 widening. And when we did West Nashville Community Plan, we did those area study where Highway 100 and Highway 70 meet. And we do have lots of study on page 149 to 152, and it shows how best mediate the traffic in that area. So I am kind of wondering if an applicant put the new sign on the right of the edge of the state highway. When and if state have enough budget and redo Highway 70 and Highway 100 area, could it be again it's in the state right of way? And if they decided to widen just a little bit to make it safer. So putting on the edge with zero variance may not be a best interest for the applicant. They may have to move again, and the state may come up and say, you have to take the sign down again. So, but anyway.
I have a couple of questions,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Did you reach out to Council Lady Evans, because she is an exceptionally thorough person and
Yes.
very much behind neighborhoods. So I'm just
Yes,
wondering.
her opinion is, yes, I understand the neighborhood. I don't like LED sign, but legally, there's nothing we can do about it. That's her opinion.
Okay. That's very helpful. Thank you. And then secondly, because it actually dovetails to almost exactly what I was going to say, we're not being asked about the LED sign. They have that. The question before us is, would the variance harm the public welfare? And to me, if you're moving the sign further off the road, you're helping the public welfare. I mean, because if it's in the right-of-way right now, it seems more dangerous to me than if we move it in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. But at the same time, because the existing sign does not have LED portion of the message board, which is just regular inside LED sign, so it will not come to your eye or distract from while you're driving. Because LED signs tend to have more brightness, so when you are driving, it has add more distraction. So that's why I am particularly asking about this LED sign message board portion. I understand your job is to consider variance, but I would like you to consider not only variance include LED message board in that sign.
Joey, we're not being asked to act on the LED portion of the sign, it's just the location?
No, the location of the structure itself, the LED portions, as far as distance, separation to residential.
So they could put up an LED sign today without any other...
Well, 15 feet from the right-of-way, yes.
Right, okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
As I said to start with, this whole thing's a catch-22 of how to relocate this sign. To answer the question you asked me earlier, what I can say is this is a huge improvement over what's there right now. We've worked very closely with the council person in that area to come up with a design that she felt like she could support. We did talk to the state. The state currently doesn't have plans to take any additional, in fact, they told us they didn't have any additional current plans to do anything in that area, but they don't have any current plans to take more land away from us. If they do, quite frankly, the location of the sign will be the least of our problems. Thank you on behalf of the owners, the Varallos and the Hostettlers, and Westmead. We ask you for your support. Thank you very much.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing. Discussion?
Only clarification from Joy. They're in their application, it states that they need a 9-foot variance, but I think it's asking for 0. Is there am I missing something?
Must have, because what I list is a 15 foot.
Yeah, 15 foot.
Unless the 9 was taking into account to the base of the pole, which we don't measure to. We measure to the leading edge.
Well, this, it sounds like they've tried to work with, the people over there, including the council person. It's tough because this is kind of like the other case that you have a very popular business district and businesses thriving and needing to attract attention, and then it's not like the days when General Harding lived down the street and there was just a country road from here to Natchez. So this is very hard for, I guess, some people to grasp that there's now needs for these, but given that this was put in an area which was legal at the time and now you cannot, I think that's a real hardship.
And I agree. And I think it's a much better sign for public safety and the community than what exists now. I think it's an improvement on the property.
I'd like to note I live dead in this neighborhood, but I think the issue before us is not LED. The issue is variance, and so it certainly, I think, has the physical characteristics to get a variance, and it'll actually be in the public good. So I move that the board approve the variance because all of the requirements of MCL 17.40.370 have been met. The board finds that the unique characteristics of the property are the infringing right-of-way in which the existing sign sits, and then a sanitary sewer line even further into the property that makes it moving back difficult. So I would move approval.
I'll second.
Got a motion, got a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Passes.
Thank you very much.
With that, the Board of Zoning Appeals is adjourned for a day. Thank you.